All right, Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back. Strange to write the date, 1/4/2021, and we will be writing 2020 by accident, probably into April. So, we are about to start this packet, the similarity unit, which a lot of you have. We started handing them out in November because we weren't sure if we were going to be remote or not, and we brought them to the library for pickup, but I still think there are some people that have not been able to connect with this packet yet. So there's going to be a question we ask on a Google form that's going to let us know who's got what. And we're not going to actually dive into this packet yet today, so you're going to need some blank paper, so go ahead and get that out. Blank paper, notebook paper, graph paper, either is fine. Okay, it's not directly related to similarity, but we were talking about lines, y equals mx plus b, slope, intercepts, all that business before break. And it will come back in a big way in the springtime. But we noticed that even with the little quizzes we would give and the assignments we gave, it wouldn't hurt to spend one day just cleaning it up and going over like the 3 main points that we should probably know moving forward. And then when we get to this topic later on in the spring, we'll already be at this point. So, review of y equals mx plus b. We're going to cover 3 things you should know about this. So whatever you see on the screen, you're going to write down because you'll be taking a picture of it and submitting it. So the 3 things you need to know. And remember, you can always pause the video if I get ahead of you. So the first thing, number 1, is write an equation of a line. So write the line equation given the slope and the y-intercept. And it doesn't get any easier than that. In fact, you're almost never asked that because it's so easy, but it's a good place to start. Because basically the 2 numbers that you need to plug in for m and b are given to you. So there's not a lot of work to be done. Okay, number 2, and you're writing all this down too. Number 2 is write the line equation given the slope and a point that the line goes through. So not necessarily the y-intercept, which is just going to be b, some random point that the line happens to go through. And then number 3 is a little bit more work, and we didn't do a lot of this. This is going to be an extension of where we left in December, but write the line equation given 2 points, and that's it. They don't tell you what the slope is directly, they just give you 2 points, and through any 2 points goes a line. What's that equation? Okay, so these are the 3 things that we're going to review today, 1 of each. Okay, the first is given the slope and the y-intercept. So, oh look, I already had one made. How about that? All right, number 1, write this down. Write the equation given a slope, which is m, right? Slope of -1/2 and a y-intercept of 7. So I like to color code things. So up here in number 1, what did I had slope yellow and y-intercept pink. So a slope of -1/2 and a y-intercept of 7. So I always start off by writing y equals mx plus b. And you always will leave the y and the x alone. Your equation when you're done will always have the y and the x still just as y and x. It's the m and b that turn into numbers. So the b is pink and the slope is yellow. So this one, there's not much to do. It's just y equals, what's the slope? -1/2. The x stays, and b was +7. There it is. Y equals -1/2 x plus 7. There wasn't really any math to do there. You're just popping in the m and the b, and you're done. You don't have to graph this, because if you don't have graph paper, it would be hard to do. But if I went up to 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then went down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. I'm sort of out of room, but that would be how you would graph that line, just like that. Okay, so that was pretty simple. Number 2, we did quite a bit of work with in December. Write the equation given the slope, slopes are yellow, and a point. What color did I make points up here? Let's see, orange. So they gave us the slope and they gave us a point, but they didn't give us the y-intercept, so we have to do a little bit of work here. When they give you slope and a point, you still start off by writing y equals mx plus b. And then we need the y-intercept. They didn't tell us that. So I like to write blank equals blank blank plus b. We're going to solve for b. We're going to figure out what b is. Because we already know m, x, and y. Right? So m is -3. X is -2, and y is 5. So then let's see, let's simplify. 5 equals -3 times -2 is +6. And if I'm going to solve for b, I need to subtract the 6. And it turns out that the b is -1. So now I can write the equation because I know the slope and the y-intercept, and that's all I need to know. Y equals -3x, and that was a -1. And I can graph this. Let's see, -1 is the y-intercept, and then the slope is down 3 over 1. And if I'm really careful with my graphing here, and I was to connect these, notice that the point -2, 5 is on the line. So it worked out. But that's how you solve when you have a point and a slope. But now number 3 is something that we hadn't covered in December. And it's one of those things that we're not really sure how far you got in March, April, or May with this in Algebra 1. So the problem is here is we don't have the slope or the y-intercept. They didn't give us either one directly. So we have to find those. So the first thing we're going to do is find the slope. And you could do this a couple of different ways. I'm going to show you visually first. If we plotted these points, -4, 2, and again, if you don't have graph paper, just watch, and 6, 0, which is right there. The line's going to look something like that when we're done, right? So we go through those 2 points. But the slope between those 2 points is down 2 over 10. So if you went down 2 over 10, that reduces to down 1 over 5. That's the visual way of doing it. But the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is your slope formula, which you came across at some point in algebra, but I'll treat it as if it's new. It's the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. So if you go up here, let's see, that would be the first x, that would be the first y. That would be the second x, that would be the second y. Now that you know that, you can just go, let's see, blank minus blank, blank minus blank. And the second y is 0. The first y is 2. The second x is 6. The first x is negative 4. Careful, there's a negative and a minus there. So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Leave, add opposite, positive 10. And when that reduces, it's that negative 1/5 that we talked about up here. So that's the slope. So now we know that all that work just to find out that the slope was negative 1/5. Okay, now we basically have this number 2 situation, because now we have the slope and we actually have 2 points. You can use either one of them. So now we can go to our y equals mx plus b, our blank equals blank blank plus b. And remember, catch up, hit pause if you need to. So what do we know right now? We know that the slope is negative 1/5. So we know that goes here. But what x and what y do we use? They gave us 2 points up here. You can use either point. You can use this one or you can use this one. And try to pick the one that's easiest. If you have a 0 or a 1 involved, use that one, because zeros are easy to multiply and divide and everything by, right? So I'm going to pick 6, 0 just because it's easier. Although that one wouldn't have hurt because they're simple numbers. But so x is 6 and y is 0. So x is 6 and y is 0. So I have 0 equals negative 1/5 times 6 is just negative 6/5. Now, though that's ugly, I'm adding it to 0, so that's always easy to do. If I add 6/5 to the other side, I just figure out that b is 6/5. Not pretty, but correct. So remember, you're done. You have your slope, you have your y-intercept, put those together, and you have y equals negative 1/5 x plus 6/5. And if we were going to graph that, which we already had the points here, right? It's tough to see exactly what the y-intercept is, but 6/5 is 1 1/5, so it's 1 and a little bit more. So that makes sense. Again, you don't have to graph it. So there are 3 things we covered today. We covered what to do when you have a slope and a y-intercept, which is just plug the numbers in and you're done. What do you do when you have a slope and a point? You plug in your y, your x, and your m, and you solve for b. What do you do when you have 2 points? You find the slope first, and then use one of the other points to do y equals mx plus b. And this will come back in a big way in probably the middle of the springtime when we do all the coordinate geometry. But if we can get this far, going into that, we are in business.